It's finally time to start firing up the grill. From city to shore, Acme is everything you need to prep for this summer season. Download the Acme app to shop for this season's essentials any way you want. Open the Acme app, clip your deals, then order your items online. An experienced Acme associate will carefully select your groceries, bag your order, and bring it right to your car or deliver right to your door. Download the app or visit acmemarkets.com for program details.
Hi there, I'm Adam Kirbas. You are listening to my podcast where we talk about various things abroad approach. We some sort of discuss philosophical issues here. This is another day in the pandemic. It is an October day here in Ordu in Turkey. The sun is coming out, so we have a little bit sunshine here, and I hope that you all are doing fine and that we somehow will get through this pandemic. However, the last time, yesterday, we talked about the Oedipus complex. I know that this is quite controversial. I think the Oedipus complex within the psychoanalysis as well, it is very controversial. There was written a lot of critiques about the Oedipus complex in the psychoanalysis as well, and outside the psychoanalysis. I mean, this is one of the feminists hate this part because it is, in a way, you would say how homosexuality develops or may develop. I will some sort of shortly talk about this, how homosexuality, according to the psychoanalysis, develops. However, again, I have to be aware of one thing, that firstly, the psychoanalysis is not 100% science, because 100% science would be something which is verifiable. It is not, and I think this is pretty much difficult in the human mind to some sort of come up with 100% scientific judgments, or if you come up with 100% scientific judgments, then they are so general, they are mostly in general, that you can't much, or that they really, in a way, they are rather biology than really science of the mind. I know that in the English-speaking sphere, there is not this discussion between between Geisteswissenschaften, this is a German term meaning the science of the mind, the science of the conscience, if you want, and between Naturwissenschaften, this is then in German called Natur, the science of the nature, or rather the science, rather biology. This is indeed a big contested area. So normally a German philosopher right now would start, if you want, a tirade about why his approach to science is wrong and the other is why his approach to science is true and the other is wrong. Like I mean, if you think that mind or the science of mind, then you assume that you cannot verify, or that you cannot prove and verify some processes in your mind. Like, for example, a very common example is insanity. Insanity is something you cannot detect on an, I think it is called tomographer in English. So you cannot detect insanity, you cannot detect your character. This is nothing you can see. This is something that goes beyond biology, yet it has, of course, biological foundation, if you want, psychosomatic. So if you some sort of have psychological issues, then you have sometimes physical symptoms as well, and if a scientist would be have an naturwissenschaftlichen approach, so beer science, then he would say, now everything that goes, something you cannot prove, is some sort of mysticism is superstition, is belief, and in our philosophy. So this is a big issue in the German-speaking sphere in English, or in the Anglophone sphere. It is not that case that there's only one science and everyone would agree. In the Anglophone sphere, science is something which I can prove, verify with methods, whatever. However, just keep in mind, and psychoanalysis always tried to be, Sigmund Freud always tried to be scientific, but he did not succeed because it is very difficult, some sort of proof your unconscious. Carl Gustav Jung, one of Freud's students, tried to prove the or the unconscious with suggestions. So there was another way. However, this is, of course, scientific, not very proven. And in the scientific world, the unconscious is in a way denied, or is in a way ignored in that sense, because it is very difficult to prove it. I mean, one thing you could do or approach, this is my approach to some sort of structure the or to structure the unconscious, is via your memories. Your memories, they work in a special way. They work so you have some sort of memories of your youth, of your past, and significant issues. So you mostly remember significant things that occurred in your life and so on. So this is a big issue, just to keep in mind. I talked about this before, and I will talk about this over and over again, because I speak in English, and those in outside of the German intellectual sphere, they might not know these issues. So in the German speaking sphere, the psychoanalysis has still its place. Still, it is part considered. Well, let's say it is part considered the science of mind. I consider it as philosophy, but it is indeed a very profound attempt. This is something we have to be very clear of. It is an attempt, and I always said it is the psychoanalysis we have to consider as an attempt to some sort of fully understand or understand the human conscious as well as the sub and conscious. However, and we talked about Oedipus complex, and I said a very crucial thing, and this was that it would not matter. Let's say that there is a lesbian or gay couple who adopts a child, and I said that it is for a relationship always verified, or if this relationship some sort of has to maintain, or if it has a stable foundation, no matter what people say, then there's always one part in the relationship. So who is some sort of the passive form, maybe subordinate was not rightly chosen, but the passive form, and the other one is active, or I said the dominant form, and the other one is some sort of the passive form. And this might all assume with manliness and with femininity, because this is what we assume. This is what gender is, and I am an advocate of the approach that there is a biological sex which you cannot change. This is in your genes, and if you do not like your sex, your biological sex, then you have a superior mind to deal with it, to deal with your physical appearances, with your shortcomings, whatever it is. So we will talk a little bit about Alfred Adler as well. However, this is why you have a superior mind to deal with these things. However, it is indeed true, and there is a lot of proof that there is a social gender. This is some sort of socially constructed. An easy way to prove this is through history. I always refer to the antiquity. There is a lot of, if you want, a lot of material. There is, for example, an example that over-sexualization in the antiquity was manifested on the male body. It was homoerotic and so on. So this is indeed a big issue. So it is possible in a way to have it reverse as well, and that I said, or in our society where men are dominating and the male gender therefore is some sort of considered as being on top, as being dominant, as taking more space in or as occupying more space and so on. This is true, but in increasingly women through emancipation adopt to this gender, and this means that this male gender, which is some sort of this notion that a man always have to be strong, that he has to be on the forefront, or that he always has to lead and the woman has to follow. That this changes and more increasingly women take over this role, which then leads to the fact that the gender, this male gender is not confined to the one biological sex anymore, but instead in more. So this means as a woman, more and more it is accepted to be dominant. For a woman, it is more and more accepted to some sort of be ambitious, to accomplish something, albeit with compromises still, to adopt to a male culture which some sort of benefits the biological sex of man. However, but this means that more and more this gender, this typical male gender, gets shallowed out, if you want. This social creation more and more transforms, if you want, and that it is not per se only for women. This is something you can see in feminist movements where emancipation, I consider it as negative in that sense, because you do not really contribute to your own emancipation. You cannot go beyond this gender which is construed in the society, or because you just adopt to it, and in the end you even help to survive it, you reanimate it. This is what it is all about. I mean, if you assume that male as well as female gender is construed, which I do, where I follow Simone de Beauvoir, which I do, again, this is different from your biological sex, which you cannot change. However, if you assume that this is socially construed, then these things changes. It is construed, so it changes over time, and you pretty much help to maintain it. There was, of course, and again, his story teaches us that there was, it can change. It was different once. However, what is not, this is what I want to say. And then, of course, I talked about Oedipus complex, which I some sort of rushed in a way. I mean, the first thing was, or the key issue in the Oedipus complex is that you try to explain what role models play a significant role in the development of a child. The psychoanalysis has some sort of confined it to the family. He said in the Oedipus complex, it is said it is father and mother, and they have a significant influence. They are in the first formative years of the child, and in these formative years they have a significant influence how the child acts, behaves, and how it orients himself towards the opposite sex as well as towards the same sex, his mother, as well as, or vice versa, his mother or his father. Of course, this is not only psychological, this is something we have to be aware of as well. I mean, there are indeed significant issues. For example, if there are some which we have to talked about. I mean, if you some sort of live in social dire situations. I mean, if you have financial strain, I mean, this is what is always have. I mean, if you live in some certain circumstances, they have indeed influence on your development as well. They may have positive influences or they may have negative influences. However, and we said that the boy in the family tries to gain the attention of his mother, and in doing so he orientates himself on the father. He tries to compete with him. This is what the psychoanalysis tells us. He tries to compete with him. He does not succeed. He some sort of steps back and then more and more emulates his father in how to attract attention of women. Again, in the psychoanalysis, this is all about sexuality. I would rather say this is about emotional connection. We will talk about this. So the child wants to build emotional connection to his mother. She is some sort of a archetype, female archetype, and then as well as to his father. And these things must not be confined to biological sex as well. So this means if a boy has, for example, two mothers, then of course one of them, despite being biologically a woman, can have a male gender, can live in, if you want, this male construction of gender, of sex, which is common in society, and therefore can indeed have a male role model, even though if it is a woman. I will emphasize this again. I mean, I haven't read any research according to this topic. It would be indeed interesting to some sort of see which effect it has on children who grow up with LGBTQ plus parents. This is indeed interesting. Well, maybe there is already research. Again, I don't have access to it. I do not attend university anymore. So there is, of course, maybe someone else will know some answers. However, but this is what I assume. It is assumably, if we assume that your social gender is construed, then we assume that there must not be any difference in that matter. So this means that a biological biological woman can take the place of a social gender of a male as well, because it is already happening. It is already adaptation. So this means for that reason, so a boy in that sense could have, despite having no father, a male role model. This was the key message here. And then we talked about women, the girls. The psychoanalysis tells that it is a little bit different with girls in that matter, that the girl some sort of notices very early on that she has no penis. I mean, this is always difficult to really verify to prove it, and then therefore she some sort of gets envious, gets hate, fills her body with hate, or fills herself with hate. I mean, Helene Deutsch, she was a psychoanalyst. She was a student of Freud, who is not well known. She says, I mean, she once in her book, I think it is called the female gender, but I'm not very sure. Her name is Helene Deutsch, and she wrote a book about where she some sort of analyzes or talks about this matter, which is in German called penis night. So this envy for the male penis, and Helene Deutsch argues that because of that, the woman's sexuality, later on the woman's sexuality spreads over her entire body, so her entire body becomes some sort of a one whole sexual organ, or organ in that sense in further development, and some sort of can even develop to some sort of a body fetish and so on. So this is Helene Deutschwart said. However, psychoanalysis or Oedipus complex of course explains homo, or there were some attempts within the psychoanalysis to use Oedipus complex, this mechanism, childhood mechanism, in order to explain homosexuality. Why would homosexuality develop? I mean, we already said it, that with girls, it is not per se that girls really envy male men because they have a penis, and they not. It is rather that women envy the social stand, the social position of man in a society. This there is of course indeed some toxicity. It has all natural. That man would lead. That man would some sort of be in power. It is always argued naturally. Man would be stronger, would be smarter, would be able to think in terms, for example, in math, and women would not be able. Women would have, because of their childbearing skills, would be way more emotional, would be therefore way more close to children. This is the narration. This is as well as this is not only used against women. I talked about it. This is as well as used in post-colonial arguing why of the others. For example, a very famous post-colonial identities are. I mean, there were a lot of identities construed, which then some sort of portrait those foreigners in Africa as an Asia, as feminine, as female, as womanly. This dates back to the antiquity, to the Greeks. I mean, you can pretty much trace back the antagonism between West and East, back to the Greeks, between the Greek world and the Persian world. I mean, all these prejudices which are in use to this very day, they date back to this time where there was actually no Christianity, no Islam around. However, it's still kept to this very day. And in this matter, however, and then women some sort of develop envy, and this envy would then leads to that women think or hate their own kind, that being a woman would be then considered as negative, as something undesirable, or that being a woman, this is I indeed observed these things, then that the perception within women, so not man, but within women, that the perception is that being woman, that you are inferior, you are beneath, you are subordinated, and that you have to do something against it, do something against it, like to prove over and over again that you're strong, that man cannot some sort of thwart you, and so on. And this then further leads to women seeing any relationships to man in a way as subordination, in a way as humiliation, as demeaning, and therefore they some sort of avoid relationships to man, rather seek the relationships to other women. So this woman then becomes lesbian, and in this lesbian role she takes over male behavior, those male genders, and then in a way sees herself equal to man in subordinating other women. This is some sort of the brainchild, if you want, or boiled down the narration in the psychoanalysis why women become lesbians. This is something you can agree or deny. Again, there's a lot of issues in the psychoanalysis, or that you have to question about, because one thing is, it must not be all about envy. We have a lot of okay, we don't have much data, but what can happen as well is that if that someone decides to become some sort of lesbian, if a woman becomes to lesbian because she did not find a suitable match. This happens mostly by very educated women. There is some still fear. This is male fear, existential fear that this over-sexualized woman who then happens to be smart as well, and then that she does not need a man who takes care of her and so on. So men then do not have a role in their lives, and this leads to fear and and women struggling to find a match, and then this can lead to homosexuality as well, or as well as narcissism. This is what we will only talk a little bit about narcissism. So this being in love with yourself can lead to homosexuality as well. This is what you have mostly in man. So if you only see all those or many male homosexuals, gay men, a lot of them are narcissists, or not a lot of them are, but many are narcissists who some sort of have created a fetish about themselves, have created a fetish about their identity and so on, and they some sort of portray in a way homosexuality as well. Not all, some do this, and in man, how homosexuality creates is, there are many forms. One form or one narration in the psychoanalysis goes that either the boy has a too dominant father. This means that the father is too dominant, is too demanding, that he some sort of cannot compete with him, because competition not only means that you oppose your parent, but competition means as well as that you some sort of discover your own identity, your own possibilities. One great example is physical exercises like sports, soccer, football, whatever. In these exercises, you some sort of get a feeling for your own body as well as your capabilities. However, when you have a very dominant father, someone who is almost this, but if you want, then you are some sort of then his dominance thwarts your attempts to even compete with you, and I mean competition in an affectionate way, in a way to so that you can orient yourself on him. So this some sort of frauds then your development, and the boy rather orients himself on at his mother and becomes feminine according to the psychoanalysis. And the second possibility by man is when the father figure is in a way not there, is weak, so that the boy has only one role model, and this is his mother. And he then orients himself on his mother and so on. Again, this is some sort of assumes that this is, if you want, I mean, Freud had a lot of patients from the middle class, so this pretty much this family constellation leaves out siblings. It is indeed possible that siblings have a significant role in how in family constellations as well, and this of course leaves out some other socializations. I mean, like school. It is not quite clear, or in that sense, it is in this beginning Oedipus complex. It is not quite clear what happens when other siblings interfere, when society interferes, and so on. So there are indeed very a lot of questions which this approach puts forth. However, it is in a way to understand human interactions, to understand which influence the formative years have on a child. Again, there is a lot of things written, I think, in psychology, in how your psyche develops. We have only focused on the philosophical aspects, if you want. I mean, I don't know much about the other psychological approaches, and so this was some sort of confined to this revelation, and the formative years of a child has been assumed. It is at the beginning and then later in puberty as well. So your the sexual orientation of a person is pretty much, if you want, is pretty much molded, if you want. The sexual orientation of a child is of a person, of an individual, is molded in those formative years, and then in puberty. This means in puberty or at the end of puberty, it becomes pretty much clear whether someone is homosexual or not. This is according to psychoanalysis. Again, but this has indeed something truth on it, because later on, if someone discovers he or she is being homosexual, this is mostly has other factors. So homosexuality does indeed develop in the early ages. So if you are not sure in your youth whether you are not, or if you were pretty much sure in your youth that you are that you have a certain that you are homosexual or heterosexual, this actually does not change when you get older. Or you may go into a midlife crisis, or you may have some sort of lived through some issues in your life, but mostly this does not change. So your formative years do indeed matter. And of course, with the psychoanalysis, we have one very important assumption, and this is that biologically these things, they do not matter. So this means that a child is not born as gay or as homosexual. So homosexuality is actually socially constructed. This is nothing people are born with. And this is, of course, may seem very controversial for some LGBTQ members, but however, it is not. Homosexuality in that sense is not socially constructed. Is socially constructed in this approach, in this, if we assume that nothing is really, that you are, if you want, are born or born in a way equally, and then only through society, through social interventions, you are being molded to a certain kind of way. You are being molded to become a certain kind of way. Of course, we talked a little bit about Nazism. Nazism can indeed have an influence about your desire, about your orientation. Nazism plays one crucial part in your sexual orientation. Again, it's not the sole reason. However, so those who want to read a little bit more about Nazism, there's Heinz Kohut, who was a psychoanalytic, who then as well as questioned these Oedipus complexes, who wrote a lot about Nazism. Very interesting. So he, in a way, some sort of tried to explain everything through a Nazistic approach. This is again something you can either assume this is something you again can adopt or reject. It is again, this was back in the days, those grand narrations where everyone assumed that everything can be traced back to one principle. I mean, we have outgrown of this approach, so this may hopefully this came out here as well as when I'm talking about these matters, that there is not one approach, there are many. So we some sort of have passed the postmodernist world, but yet still have elements included of the postmodern world. Despite the fact that we live in a new era, if you want, I try to argue that we live in a new era. We may not have the name for it yet, but it is a lot of significant changes in the society have occurred, so that we cannot say that this is the postmodern world anymore. However, but still, we have some sort of incorporated postmodern accomplishments, achievements, and this means that we have understood that there is not one principle you can trace these back. There are many principles there, as well as many things happen by chance. This is what we will talk about as well, which I want to talk about in this podcast as well. Irrationality. So human beings handle actually mostly irrational, so it is not only randomly, so you are not on a rarely and randomly fall victim to your emotions. No, you do this a lot. So humans indeed act a lot of times, make decisions a lot of time based on irrational influences, yet it still makes human lives, human society possible, and living in a society possible. It is indeed the key essential actually, that humans may act rationally, but as well as act irrationally. So those two coexist in a society. Those things coexist in a human mind. You cannot act purely rational, as well as you cannot act purely irrational, because if you act purely irrational, then you would not be able to manage your life. Then you would make one, or then you would not reach anything or accomplish anything in your life. However, our main topic here was desire in that sense, that we want to try to find out, or try the origin of the desire. What might we see in desire? Why? Which things have an issue later on in our life? How we choose our partners. Again, we are not talking about sexual orientation. Yet here in Oedipus complex, it some sort of comes our way here again. I mean, there's one assumption that desire or what is undesirable is that you would feel uncomfortable with your identity, you feel uncomfortable with your society, with your surroundings, with your life, and that you always try to some sort of compensate this felt inferiority. So this is a very famous word by Alfred Adler, who was a student of Freud, and this inferiority, then some sort of you go out to seek a compensation for this. This is again a very term from the individual psychology of Alfred Adler. However, this is not different. I mean, we talked about women who doesn't want to subordinate herself, who thinks that being a woman is diminishing, and if she's around man, if she is in a relationship with man, would be always confronted with being just a woman, with being just negative. This, in addition to this, we talked about it before, the third wave of feminism did not really accomplish a positive view on women, as well as the positive view on female sexuality. rather, still being a woman is always considered negative in that sense that you are at home, or it is perceived. Being a woman means homely, at home, being so in a way confined to children and to the care of children, and this would not be timely, this would be negative as well. There is no really, there is not an emancipated version of a housewife. There is just none, or there is not an emancipated few, or only rare few of a woman who is emancipated yet at home and with their children and so on. However, this is not only confined to women. This is something we have with men as well. I talked about this example over and over again, and I will bring it up again. And this is, for example, if you're a man, you some sort of are attracted to an attractive woman because you think that she then helps you to prove the world that you are manly, that you're a potent man, and so on. So this is then pretty much the same if you want, and then you seek then relationships to those attractive women, if you want, models and so on, who are being considered as valuable, as beautiful by the other society. So this plays a crucial part as well, and this is something you see very often. For example, older men who are with younger women and so on, in order to boost their self-esteem and so on. And this is something you would have with women as well, with some lesbians, if you want. Again, this is not one way how lesbianism develops, but let's be clear, there are many ways how lesbianism develops, but in this approach, in the psychoanalysis, in this Oedipus complex, it is because the women in a way felt that they are not treated equally, or in another case which I forgot, is that if a woman in a way grows up like a man, like a boy, this is something you have as well. Mostly family does not have a male heir, if you want, and these things, they are still the perception is there's a man or there's a boy, or the perception is that a boy counts more than a man, than a girl, because he some sort of inherits the family name, he some sort of gives the continues the line and so on, and a woman is only there to marry. So these things are indeed very crucial still to this very day, and still to this very day people prefer boys over men. This is what you had, for example, in China with the one-child politic. When people were only allowed to have one child, most of them chose boys over girls. So still, and this despite being a communist country, so those prejudices against girls, they run deep, and of course they have implications about them, implications for the mental development of women. If you think or if you not only think, if you constantly have to face the effect that you are being subordinated to other men, or that you subordinated because you have a vagina, then things of course can take a different turn. However, we will talk about this the next time, especially about Alfred Adler, a little bit about Alfred Adler, and then we will talk about emotional connections, which I think is a very important part, because now we some sort of a little bit strived off from desire, but I think it's still important that we some sort of talk about this topic as well. So this was Adem Kebas from Ordu in Turkey on this October day, on this sunny October day, in the pandemic. I hope that you are all doing fine. Bye.
It's finally time to start firing up the grill. From city to shore, Acme is everything you need to prep for this summer season. Download the Acme app to shop for this season's essentials any way you want. Open the Acme app, clip your deals, then order your items online. An experienced Acme associate will carefully select your groceries, bag your order, and bring it right to your car or deliver right to your door. Download the app or visit acmemarkets.com for program details.